Hello and welcome. So I'm Reece. I'm the host of the Northwest Emo Show. I'm also the deputy music editor over at the Mancunian, and I'm joined here by George or Geoblu. We're going to have an interview, talk about kind of his music, where he's come from, his roots, and moving to Manchester. But do you want to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, my name's Geoblu. It's my music name, and it's really nice to be the interviewee because, as you know, I'm usually doing the interview. I feel slightly nervous for some reason, um, being
No,
the
don't worry about
interviewee
it, man.
once. But yeah, it's really nice to be the one being interviewed.
Cool, cool.
Thanks, man.
Um,
Thanks for having me.
no worries at all, man. I mean, if you haven't checked out any of George's interviews yet, you really, really should. Maybe we should start by kind of talking about that a little bit. Talk about some of the people that you've interviewed since you come to Manchester and kind of where that all started.
Sure. Yeah. I started off. It makes sense to start off start off talking about how I started making music. I first was just making music because I was very passionate about it, and then that naturally um, kind of ended up in me having a radio show and getting on a different artist every week on Itch FM,
Yeah,
and I interviewed that artist every week, I developed a real passion for talking to musicians.
yeah,
At that point, it was anyone that I could sort of get hold of, but through that, I really developed a network of musicians in the underground London rap scene. And during lockdown, it just made sense to start interviewing people over Zoom.
yeah, yeah.
So that's how that came about.
Cool, for sure. And I mean, that's kind of a bit where the inspiration comes from this. Do you want to talk a bit about that radio station, that channel? Kind of what's that? Is it all about underground hip hop in London?
So that radio station Itch FM actually used to be really big in UK hip hop. So at the time of people, I don't know if you know people like Skinny Man,
Yeah,
Jest, they've had sort of Ocean Wisdom, people like that, and so they presumably got me on to, in a sense, revitalize
yeah,
the youth element because a lot of the presenters were older. I really enjoyed doing it. It was a really good opportunity for me. I was a little nipper back then.
yeah,
I was sort of 16ish, and um, also just interviewing a different artist every week really allowed me to develop personal skills
yeah,
in a way that I wouldn't have otherwise. It really helped me in all sorts of ways. I was actually listening back to one of my first shows on HFM and it was
yeah,
pretty shambolic. So I've
yeah,
really improved in my eloquence since then. Um, and yeah, it really taught me a lot. I had people from, I had to deal with a big range of characters.
yeah,
So having to be the one as a youngster with people who are older to be the one who actually asserts the
yeah,
power and says, no, you can't drink a Magnum in here.
yeah.
You get all kinds of people. You get divas, you get people that are more personable, and to deal with that from a young age really helped me. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think having that kind of having issues like that, it's all across music. You've got like very eccentric people and stuff like that, but being able to step up to that
Yeah.
and assert that dominance, it kind of teaches you those lessons you need. And I know what you mean with like, it's mad how just talking to someone, like in an interview, how much better you can get at it. Because I think of my first interviews as well. And I'm like, how am I even having a conversation? It sounds incredibly awkward, but you just get better at having these interviews. And I know a big part of kind of your early work with Itch FM and stuff like that, you had a residency at Map Studio Cafe. And I know that not a lot
Mm.
of people outside of London or outside of the hip hop scene might not know about it, but it is kind of legendary. So I wondered if you'd talk us through a bit about that and maybe explain what Map Studio Cafe is to people who might not have heard of it.
First of all, I really appreciate you knowing that. So yeah, again, I was really young and I really wanted to perform. So I
Yeah,
said, so basically there was this every Friday at this place called Map Studio Cafe, which is a Caribbean cafe which has a venue space as well. Um, all of these sort of year 11s or whatever would
yeah,
just go there,
yeah,
and it would basically be like a big house party. And so I thought, how can I hold an event? So that was the first place I thought of. So I held an event there, and that's also coincidentally how I started my radio show because they happen to be in the same complex.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, so and they really liked how the events that I held there went. So I'd started a residency where I held events at Maps every 2 weeks
Yeah.
for a while, which was amazing, man. I loved it.
Yeah.
I had artists on such as Ayrton, Ashbeck, Kamikaze came down. Who else? Loads of people. Mr. Green, off the top of my head. Um, and yeah, loads of artists, and I just absolutely love performing.
Yeah.
I it, it just is amazing. I love the rush that you get from it. So I just took it into my own hands, started holding events there, and so yeah, after lockdown ends, I'm going to be doing that again. So for anyone watching, please come down to Map Studio Cafes. That's in Kentish Town.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. So these events that you're holding, were they mainly focused around the artists that you had coming down, like you said, Mr. Green and people like that, or was it kind of focused around specific genres of music? Would you hold grime events, or was it focused on the artist?
There wasn't a particular theme for each night. It was a collection of different artists. I actually tried to get on artists that were slightly different to
Yeah,
have a story throughout the night in a way where someone more chilled would play at the beginning and then people who were more hyper would
yeah,
play towards
yeah,
the end. And I thought that turned out really well actually. Um, and yeah, there wasn't a particular theme for each night. But I just love the vibes there, man. It's such a
yeah,
great place as well. It's kind of really small, but it's just like really, it's
yeah,
really atmospheric. So yeah, no, we've had some amazing nights there. Um, I had there's an artist called Sir Rourke.
yeah,
This is the last time we held an event before lockdown, and um, he's a bit of a nutter, and he absolutely fucked, and he banged his head against the wall,
yeah.
and then he was fully bleeding. It looked really bad, and then he was like, "No, rock star shit. I'm performing," and people were trying to give him like first aid kits and stuff, and he was holding this big towel as, and there was just blood streaming down as he was performing, and you just couldn't, no one could stop him. It was so funny, man. But yeah, we've had some good times there.
Yeah, man, for sure. Like that's the rush that you describe, isn't it? Like being on stage, stuff like that just doesn't phase you whatsoever, and you just keep going. In terms of you saying that you wanted to do some more of it afterwards, have you got anyone in mind? Anyone that you're looking at getting on, or any specific events that you're hoping to hold in the future after lockdown?
Yeah, so after lockdown, I've got a lot of people in mind that that are going to be performing. So I don't want to name drop
Yeah,
them yet, but
yeah.
it's going to be big. Yeah.
Cool. Brilliant. How can we find out who these people are going to be when you do announce them? Follow you on Instagram, or is there like a
Yeah,
specific
yeah, yeah.
page? Yes. Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Well,
Yeah.
we'll make sure to
Sorry.
link that down below. Yeah, yeah. We'll make sure to link the Instagram down below, and then you can find all of George's future events and check him out, and his music that we're going to kind of get onto in a moment. In terms of moving to Manchester, where you've got this big experience, is it something maybe you're looking at doing there while you're at uni in term time, potentially trying to find a residency
Oh,
somewhere up north?
oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been emailing some venues in Manchester uh, to try and sort that one out. That
Yeah,
would be amazing as well.
for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely looking to root myself within the Manchester music scene more because unfortunately, because of
Yeah,
the situation, it's just been impossible to make those connections in Manchester
yeah,
in the same way that I have it in London. But after lockdown, all of that will change.
yeah,
So it'll make
for
it a
sure.
lot easier to do that.
Yeah, because it's one of those very
Yeah.
organic things. I'm assuming, like you hold a show, someone comes, you meet someone else through that person. Like that's how
Oh
all of
yeah.
these connections are sorted. Which is one of the like worst things about COVID is like it's not even you're not putting the effort in. You just can't meet that next person because of Zoom calls and everything like that. But make sure you do
Oh
follow
yeah.
George on Instagram to check it out when Manchester things start happening because I think there is a fairly big hip hop scene in Manchester. It's just not something that students necessarily go and seek out up until this point. Um,
Oh
so
yeah, exactly. And just really quickly, actually, that's the way I met Songer was because I had an artist performing called Manny DM,
Yeah.
who's friends with him, which I didn't actually know before I got him on. And Songa was just there, and I was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
you're I love your music. I was, being a fanboy, but who the fuck cares? And
Yeah.
he really liked my music, so that's how that happened. And
Yeah.
as you say, it's a real shame that you can't form those actual. Even that, like, I haven't met you in real life
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
You know what I
Which is
mean?
mental, isn't it?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of people can be quite defeated by the whole situation. I feel like it's important. There are opportunities within it, even though it's shit. It
Yeah.
does present opportunities in itself. For example, if it weren't for lockdown, I wouldn't have started doing these Zoom interviews.
Yeah.
So there's two sides to every coin, really.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I probably wouldn't have started the radio show or doing these interviews like now. And
Mm.
there's different people that I'm meeting, different connections. I'm finding all sorts of stuff out. So like, there is the stuff out there. It's just difficult to figure out how to approach it. You know what I mean? Because it is new for everyone. So at these events, I know you mentioned the head wound that we were talking about. And the interviews like that. Do you have any specific moments from the interviews, maybe, or one specific interview that you remember fondly, or thought would be really good to check out? Maybe if someone wants to check out your interviews for the first time, where would they start?
Yeah. Okay. There's been so many funny moments in interviews. I've had some absolute nutcases. uh, I'd say my favorite interview that I've done is definitely my interview with Songa, and that was because partly we got on so well. I thought we were really similar, and I also think that that's reflected in our music. I feel that the lyrics and the vibe is pretty similar. I had another one that comes to mind was a guy called Baraka, who I had on my radio show on Itch FM, and he was older. He was about 35,
Yeah,
but he was the most talented lyricist I've ever met in my life. This guy, I remember I met him at because I did a Don't Flop. I don't know if you know rap battle,
yeah,
and this guy was at the event, and he's also a bit of a nutter himself. He started just freestyling outside with this speaker, and I was like, "Yeah, you did write that, didn't you?" But he was like, "No, that's a fucking free." The lyrics he was coming up with were were better than most people can write. It was just amazing, and I had him on my radio show, and this guy's penmanship is just incredible. It was so nice to talk to him as an artist that I really really admired, and he also just hasn't got any recognition at all. So it goes to show that the recognition you get isn't necessarily reflective at all of the ability you have.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, man.
For sure. I think, and that's one of the things that I kind of want to do with my stuff, with the interviews and the radio shows and stuff like that, is there are so many undiscovered gems. And until you start like looking at the music industry from kind of inside and moving towards it, you'd be surprised how many people are like just amazing, but aren't maybe
Mm,
seen as marketable. So like the big labels don't want them, even though like what they do is the best. You know what I mean? Like I
mm,
think it comes in with hip hop as well. Like some really complex lyricists are amazing to listen to, but because you can't turn it into a pop song, some labels just don't want to hear it. You know what I mean?
mm,
But what's the dynamic?
exactly.
What's the dynamic like for you when you're an artist yourself interviewing other artists? Like, how does that come into play? Do you use kind of your expertise of, well, this is how I write, this is how I pen, when you discuss their music with them?
I feel my interviews are definitely so informed by the fact that I'm an artist myself.
Yeah,
I feel that it gives me a really unique perspective when interviewing, um, because I can talk comfortably with people about the technicalities of making a song,
yeah,
and the lyrics. For example, with Baraka, we just connected on such a deep level because we were talking about the difference between writing multisyllabic rhymes and monosyllabic rhymes, and how that can affect your, you know, all about those kind of very technical things. So that's an example of how it can literally manifest itself. But I think generally, just being an artist, talking to other artists, people really respond to that, and
yeah,
people can tell. Um, because I really know my shit about music, like
yeah.
writing songs and stuff, which is really informative. And also, yeah, it just gives me a nice perspective, really. and I feel that it makes it different as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the
Yeah.
passion comes out. They can see how much you care because you do it yourself, and that makes getting into
Mm.
these conversations, these interviews easier. So
Exactly.
as an artist at the moment, what's your position? I know you've had a recent release that's gone
Yeah.
pretty big. I mean, Spotify have been putting it into their own brand artists as their own brand playlist as well, which is huge for you, right?
Mm. Yeah, so I've just released a song called Grease, with Songer, mm, and that's produced by Swick,
Yeah.
who's an Australian producer. And yeah, got added to the drip on Spotify. I'm hoping that it gets added to Grime Shutdown as well,
Nice.
which updates on Friday.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's doing all right, man. It's doing decently, decently. But I try not to look at numbers too much
Yeah.
because
For sure.
yeah.
I mean, when you speak to so many like really talented people, like you mentioned, that aren't necessarily blown up, I guess the numbers don't matter as much as you, because you are just
Mm,
passionate about
exactly.
this. Like you make music because you love it and the connections and stuff like that. And I guess working with Songer is something you've been wanting to do for a long time. So it's kind of
Mm,
just like a fulfillment moment for you. For I get that. So what's next
definitely.
on the agenda? What are you hoping for next? Have you got anyone maybe that you'd like to work with, or anywhere you'd like to perform, or anything like that?
Mm. So me and Swick have loads of songs that we've made together over the last 3 years ish,
Mhm.
and I'm putting out a few singles. One of which was Grease. Got a couple more, and then we're gonna put out a project together.
Nice.
Uh, and it's cool. It's that kind of grime-ish sound, which isn't
Yeah.
quite grime. And gonna put out some visuals as well. Got some, yeah, some big things coming, um, which I'm really excited about. And I've got hundreds of songs that I've made throughout lockdown as well. So after that project comes out, I'm gonna start putting those out, and yeah, we'll see where it goes basically. But yeah, there's plenty of artists that I would love to work with, and for example, Novelist is someone that I've always really wanted to work with, who I've been really inspired by. I really like his repetition
Yeah.
of things. He's very is very clean, and I feel I've been very influenced by that. Uh, and yeah, there's so many artists that I want to work with. Most of all, I really want to establish myself as a musician within Manchester.
Yeah.
So yeah,
For
yeah.
sure. And that kind of brings me to like the last topic that I kind of wanted to talk to you and touch with you about, because you've got your residency, you've got the events, you've got the radio show at Twitch FM and stuff like this, all this kind of stuff set up. So what made you kind of want to come be a student in Manchester when you've got all of this stuff going on as well? What was the drive to continue? Because I
Mm.
know it allows you to continue doing the music because you are doing it, but first of all, like, what are you studying for first of all, and does
Mm.
that fit in with what you're doing with the music? And yeah, what drew you to Manchester as well?
No, that's an interesting question. I was actually about to go to King's in London, and then I thought to myself, on my personal journey, that it was very important for me to get out of London
Yeah,
and go somewhere else. I think it would have been a bit of a pussy move to stay in
yeah,
what I know and in comfortability. Um, and I put that above music, basically.
yeah,
Uh, just my personal need to do that. I'm doing English literature, um, and it definitely does connect with
yeah,
lyric writing and music, because I absolutely love poetry.
yeah,
I really like. I really enjoy very close analysis of words,
yeah,
and I feel that being that writing my own lyrics and that go together, you know.
yeah,
So I think it's given me a much deeper understanding of analyzing poetry and that kind of thing. And I think it's good as well because it means that I've got out, because it means that I have to make that effort to go and establish a whole new network here.
yeah,
Um, I think that's really important. It's important to challenge yourself like that. Obviously, unfortunately, it's been difficult to do that, but uh, I've been in touch with people over
yeah.
online. So yeah, man. Yeah, that's an interesting
Yeah.
question though.
For
Yeah.
sure. I mean, and I'm sure that the experience of coming to Manchester will help you write. The experience of studying English lit will help improve your lyrics and your writing as well.
Hmm.
Like this will all improve stuff for when you do return back to London or when you start performing or holding events in Manchester. I mean, I think there's a big need for kind of a big step up with hip hop in Manchester because I mean Joshua Brooks is going off every weekend before lockdown, and you see people going into factory and stuff opposite. But like there is the desire for bigger events and to get underground hip hop to Manchester a bit more as well, I think, because it's not hard. It's fairly hard to find unless you're specifically looking for it. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for having a
Thank you
chat.
so much.
You're very welcome. Make sure you go
Appreciate
and
it.
stream the new single. Make sure you go follow George on Instagram. And if you're a student in Manchester, look out for these events because they are going to go off after COVID. That they're going to be hotly contested to get there. But thank you very much, man.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah. So obviously, my Instagram is GEOBLULDN, Geoblu London. And yeah, as you say, definitely keep an eye out for the events that are going to come, and also my radio as well.
Brilliant.
But yeah,
Yeah,
thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was really interesting.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank
All of
you.
that stuff will be linked below in the description of the YouTube video. And all of our other interviews will be sorted as well. And they'll all be linked as well. So you can check everything down below. But thank you for joining us.